insan, dari budi jadi budaya, bina asas kemampanan, kesejahteraan masa depan. Ayo seluruh anak bertv, bangunkan Malaysia Madani.
Tes. Yang berusaha Puan Haja Salmiah binti Monshi, Kesetusaha Bahagian Psikologi dan Kaunseling, Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia. Yang berusaha Puan Mahiran binti Alias, Timbalan Setiausaha Bahagian Cawangan Pembangunan Strategik, juga menjalankan tugas sebagai IT Sub Cawangan Organisasi Bahagian Psikologi dan Kaunseling, Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia. Barisan Ketua Penolong Setiausaha Bahagian Psikologi dan Kaunseling, Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia. Barisan Ketua Kaunsil Pendidikan Negeri, Kaunsil Pendidikan di Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri, Pejabat Pendidikan Daerah, Institut Pendidikan Guru Kampus, Kolej Matrikulasi Guru dan Kaunseling. Yang dihormati Penceramah Sidang Plenari, Pembentang Kertas Penyelidikan, peserta-peserta pertandingan dan basi. Yang berbahagia Datuk, Dr. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang dihormati sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Malaysia Madani, salam anak yang baik, cerdik. Salam bulan kaunseling kepada semua. Sekali lagi, selamat bertemu bagi hari kedua di persidangan antarabangsa Kaunsil Pendidikan Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia tahun 2023. Hadirin sekalian, kita telah diserikan dengan energizer daripada Sektor Psikologi dan Kaunseling Jabatan Pendidikan Negeri Pulau Pinang sebentar tadi. Jadi tentulah para peserta telah lebih lagi bersemangat untuk memberikan fokus kepada plenary yang kedua pada pagi ini. Melihat teruna terkeluh lidah menjadi sejarah satu kenangan, orang yang dinanti berkunjung sudah. Selamat datang kami ucapkan. Ucapan selamat datang kepada yang berusaha Dr. Nurashikin binti Ibrahim, Pakar Perunding Kesihatan Awam, Pusat Kecemerlangan Kesihatan Mental Kebangsaan, Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia. Yang akan memberikan perkongsian pada hari ini iaitu tajuk mental dan cabaran dalam masyarakat masa kini. Mulai kiranya tuan-tuan, saya ceritakan sedikit biodata berkenaan dengan penceramah yang tidak asing lagi di media masa. Untuk malam tuan-tuan, Dr. Nurashikin binti Ibrahim merupakan Perunding Doktor Kesihatan Awam yang telah berkhidmat di Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia lebih daripada 28 tahun. Minatnya yang sangat mendalam dalam kesihatan mental terselah dengan pelibatan aktifnya dalam bidang kesihatan mental selama lebih kurang 20 tahun. Antara kepakaran beliau adalah dalam promosi kesihatan mental, perkhidmatan kesihatan mental dan sokongan psikososial bencana dan pencegahan bunuh diri. Beliau juga telah menerima latihan tindak balas psikososial terhadap bencana dari Hyogo Institute of Traumatic Stress, Jepun, serta latihan dalam promosi kesihatan mental dan pencegahan penyakit mental dari Hunter Institute of Mental Health dan pencegahan bunuh diri dari Australia. Beliau juga telah mendapat anugerah daripada Ahli Mahkota Wilayah pada tahun 2015, penghormatan Kecemerlangan pada tahun 2016, yang terbaru The Heart of Gold Award daripada Perkama International pada tahun 2022 kerana menjadi penjawat awal yang aktif dalam strategi menangani kesihatan mental di negara Malaysia. Jadi tuan-tuan, tanpa melengahkan masa lagi, pihak majlis, marilah kita tuan-tuan, kita berikan tumpuan, minda dan fizikal kita kepada yang berusaha Dr. Nurashikin Ibrahim, Pakar Perunding Kesihatan Awam, Pusat Kecemerlangan Kesihatan Mental Kebangsaan, Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia dengan tajuk Kesihatan Mental dan Cabaran dalam Masyarakat Masa Kini. Majlis dengan penuh takzimnya mempersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very, very good morning. It's a morning, still morning. Thank you very much to Master of Ceremony, MC kita Encik Hamsa. Yeah? Dan first of all, thank you to our beloved SUB bahagian Psychology and Counselling KPM, sorry. Kau KKM dengan KPM very near to the heart. Okay, siapa yang control slide ya? Boleh ke? Boleh. Okay, I just say next. Okay, thank you to orang yang control slides. You look so sweet today. Okay, Assalamualaikum again, and I'm not going to sit behind here because I think even though it's a plenary, I understand that plenary has their also SOPs that we have to sit and be still. But sometimes I think today, first of all, thank you so much for those who have not met me, and siapa yang tak kenal, people know me as Anne or Dr. Anne. It's not a glamour name. If everybody knows, it's my nickname since small. Dan telah orang kata sebati dengan kebanyakan orang lah, whether be it friends, colleagues ataupun my new acquaintances. And today saya diberikan amanah. I've been allow me to speak in bahasa Inggeris ke? Boleh ya? Kalau campur-campur, kalau misalnya please to the not to say foreign delegates, but we welcome you to Malaysia. I understand from French Embassy. I actually saya sebenarnya baru balik dari Argentina. I just came back from Argentina, and I think I'm quite excited to share some of the things that we have shared there. And especially there's a lot of educators. And Malaysia was the only ASEAN country that was actually being asked to actually table or actually share our experiences. And I was very happy to share that our Ministry of Education Malaysia has successfully implemented our program Minda Sehat in the school. Okay, one clap to all of you. All right? So I can, tak cukup kuat lah. I'm not in my full state of good mental health today because there's so many things to do, but I feel that there's too little time, but I understand that we have to touch one thing at a time. That's one of the things that we need to do. So I understand that we have counselors from schools, we have counselors from tertiary education, we also have counselors from lecturers from the universities that are of counseling backgrounds. I think, but no matter where you are or what are the posts that you're holding, so I think the passion of everyone in this room on mental health has actually made us to actually come and stay here. All right, so my next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit on, for those, next slide ya. Slide seterusnya. Okay. This actually came from the regional framework for the future mental health in the Western Pacific region. Malaysia actually falls under the Western Pacific region, or WIPRO. Yeah. So at this point of time, we have our regional meeting in Manila that is going by, and our Minister of Health has actually came back from there yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So if you look at the terminology, I think everyone knows what is mental health is all about. The first take-home message is mental health is not mental illness. And if we look at mental health, the good mental health is basically looking at the integral of well-being. So itu sebab di dalam Kementerian Pelajaran atau Pendidikan, we use the word kesejahteraan, well-being. Okay, and it enables people to realize their full potentials. Okay, we're talking about resilience. Everybody's talking about resilience, and be productive across various settings, and also forming meaningful relationship in life, and also in terms of the whole environment, and also being able to contribute to the society. So basically, when we talk about good mental health, next slide. So it comes back to what is mental health. So I think everybody should be able by now to understand that mental health is related to feeling comfortable about oneself, feeling comfortable with other people, and being able to accept life challenges. Next slide. Okay, then this is something that we need to understand. What is the difference? There is a fine line between sometimes what we call as mental health problems and mental illness. Because when we talk about mental health problems, it are conditions or
Cek. Cobaan. Tes.
illness is related to the disturbances in the brain function. So apparently, if we talk about diabetes is an illness, mental illness such as depression, anxiety disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar and others are mental illness. So kat sini kita kena faham bahawa penyakit mental adalah penyakit, is it an illness? So when we talk about, there are terms whereby we call as mental health conditions. Mental health conditions is a big spectrum. Previously we use it as a term as mental ill health. Penyakit, even bahasa Malaysia, kesihatan mental yang sakit lah. If it's a literal translation. But basically when we talk about mental health conditions, there are other forms of conditions. For example, things like, behavioral disorders in relation to mental health problems, like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and all those things. But basically there are mental health conditions, and the mental health spectrum is very, very huge. It's from when we talk about mental well-being, right up until we have mental illness. So, in summary, mental health is at the end of the spectrum on the left side, is represented by the terminology or the definition of mental health, whereby mental illness on the other hand is represented by symptoms that affects their thoughts, feelings, behavior that affects totally severe function of their life. Next slide. So, how does COVID-19, I suppose for those of you who have actually been to some of the conferences before might have seen some of my slides, and it may be some. Sorry, dear. Okay. All right. Basically, have actually seen some of my slides and basically have actually heard what I was speaking of. But basically, when we talk about pandemic, so among these rooms, among the people in this room, we fall under probably several categories. Some of us can cope very well, given whatever. Well, some of us among here may have very high level of stress, but you can cope well. Okay? So basically, you fall under the people who can cope. Some people are having struggles, and struggles, and at that point of time, if your stress level is high, your coping is high, fair. If your stress level is very high, your coping is low, we should be worried. If your stress level is low and your coping is high, well, good that your stress level is low. You're not struggling. But if your stress level is very high and your coping is very, very low, so that is where some people end up to be unwell. So this kind of spectrum, when you talk about pre-existing mental health conditions, and along the continuum from whether it be mild, moderate, or severe, anyone is not discriminated by depression. So, in terms of mental health, we talk about stigma, but mental illness does not discriminate. Remember that. Anybody can actually have depression. And symptoms of depression and diagnosis of depressive disorder are two different things. Okay? So, when we talk about people who previously can cope, but given a certain situation whereby a person is bogged down and is basically being tested and being actually given the continuum of many struggles, they could not cope. And WHO has reported that the rate of depression and anxiety has increased by more than 25% in the first year of the pandemic. So now we are able to sit here without masks. We are able to touch everyone. It affects our emotion when you're not able to even hug your family members at that point of time. So the pandemic has actually changed us. But we must not forget that we need to take care of our mental health because things can actually be changes along the way. Next slide. All right. When we talk about the mental illness in terms of global, look at it. Approximately 450 million people suffer from some form of mental health condition. And it has probably 1 in 8 of the people living in the world having some form of mental disorder, and the rate of depression has increased, that I have actually stated there. And basically 23 million children and adolescents, those children and adolescents, the individuals that are under your care, are actually suffering from depression and suffering with some form of mental health condition. So look at Malaysia statistics. Look at our statistics. Next slide. Okay, we have a statistics of in 2009 where approximately 2.3% of Malaysians above 18 years old had depression. Okay, so imagine they are of above 18 years old, so probably now they are in some form of dekat university or they are working, you know. And if you look at, we are achieving the old country. For some of us, kalau kita masih tak sedar, kita akan mencapai negara tua. Old country in the year, tahun berapa? 2030. It's about 7 years time. So 7 years time, I will also be included as a person with in elderly. Yeah, another 5 years. Another 5 years, I will get all the half rates of traveling and whatnot. But what are we looking at? We are looking at the statistics of dementia. We are looking at the statistics of those at risk of violence. We are looking at the statistics of depression, and these statistics are high. It is not low, it is high, although we do not have things to compare as yet. But if you look at, next slide, if you look at what is happening to our children and adolescents, if you can see, one out of five, I'm sorry that the slides is in Malay, but one out of five in the year 2017 had symptoms of depression, as compared to 1 out of 4 in the year 2022, which is last year, has the symptom of depression. So this is among our school children, 13 to 17 years old. And it is actually taken from the data we collected from the Ministry of Education, the schools in the Ministry of Education. Next slide. Oh, sudah hilang? Alamak. I will have to look at the... Okay, the next slide would be about... What happened? Sorry. I'm looking at my face there. I thought it was gone. Okay. All right. So basically when we look at a further slides, a further detail of statistics, we look at the data that we collected among students 13 to 17 looking at suicidal behavior. Suicidal behavior has 4 components. 1 is suicidal ideation, 2 is suicidal plan, 3 is suicidal attempt, not successful, 4 is a suicide. Suicide is a success. That means ending one's life sepatutnya with intention, okay, and it is a success. So for counselors or for people who are at the ground, we need to understand that suicide attempt, not everything is suicide attempt. What we call as self-harm can also, suicide attempt can be included, can be part of it, because when you self-harm, when a person self-harm themselves, they may have intention to end their life, or they may not have intention to end their life. So that is something that, although in terms of detail, it may not be, some people say, fine, they still harm themselves. But there are 2 things, whether they are crying for help or whether they do want to end their life for some whatever reason. So those are the things that sometimes we need to explore. Because remember that suicide idea can be constant. It can be there. Although a person has actually attempted suicide, that idea can still be there, although you get treatment, you know. So these are the things that at the community level we need to address. And if you look at it, everything is on the increasing trend. This is just last year. So if we were to do it in 2024, we hope that with whatever program that we are actually pushing to the ground, we are actually implementing, the suicide rate, suicide behavior statistics will go down. Hopefully, semoga kita berjaya. Because when we look at the outcome indicator, suicide rate is the outcome indicator that reflects your mental health condition. So next slide. Okay, this is one more thing that I just would like to share. For those of us who are actually having, if your wife is pregnant, if your wife has just delivered, or if your sister, even your mother, even yourself, 11.2% of mothers after giving birth has depression. And 9 out of 10 does not even realize they have postpartum depression. So this is another area that Ministry of Health needs to work on. And if you can see, this also affects our children, because especially with mothers who have many children. So this is something that, and it is actually rampant, and it is happening in the urban, probably in the urban and among the young mothers. So as we can see that it does not discriminate anyone. Teachers, counselors, doctors, lawyers, whoever they are, we are facing this problem too. Okay, next slide. So, be it with what are the needs and gaps, okay? So, we fall at the level of community, family support, and also basic services security. The base needs to be strong. Our support to the community, that is why we are doing community, psychosocial, mental health support. I think Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education is also looking into helplines, to help warga sekolah, warga kerja. And we are looking also into how do we strengthen the basic service security, looking at mental health being implemented from other agencies, not just by the Ministry of Health. Next slide. So if you look at the gaps, some of the gaps that I would be able to probably pin out, one of it is basically when we talk about stigma. Stigma is still the main barrier for people to seek help. Kenapa? Why? Because when a person tells another person that I have depression, what is the next question? What would be the next question? Probably not from you all as the counselors. What would be the next question when a person tells you, I have depression? I'm sad. I can't function. Apa? Gila? Smile. What do people tell you? You're not strong enough. You're not strong enough. You have a good family, you have a good husband, you have a good teacher. You're not strong enough. Be stronger. But do they tell that to you when you have fever? Do they tell that to you when you have diabetes? You're not strong enough, that's why you get diabetes or hypertension. Can. But when they tell you that, I think that, I did, and probably I have some form of mental illness, or maybe, somebody is telling me that I can't focus and things like that, so I might just well get assessment. You tak boleh focus, No, you are just not strong enough, so be stronger. That is stigma. Number 2, your problems are not as big as other people's problems. When someone tell you, I have this problem, I can't solve it, my children is like that. Hey, excuse me, I have 6 children. I have 6 children, you only have 2 lah, that one also you cannot take care. Okay? That is stigma. Alright? So stigma remains the main thing because we are not able to empathize. We are just able to probably sympathize, yes, but sympathize itself and making further statements that actually blocks another person to come and seek help. Okay? That is one. So that is why our children do not speak to us. Because why? They feel that when you speak to a counselor or you speak to a person that they are not in the safe zone, my problems will be told to everyone. Itu stigmanya. So how can we normalize mental health problems? And in school, okay, A has depression, N has depression, for example. Fine, N has depression, but is N getting treatment? Yes, she is. Example. These are examples. So in the school setting, in the university setting, it's okay when a person says that I have bipolar, but I am functioning. I come to work, I can do my work, I take my medication, I go for assessment, and I go for treatment. Okay. Next slide. When we talk about, sorry, previous slide. Next thing, access to mental health care. What we are talking now about is basically we have to look into, if you look at the Dasar Counselling Negara, our counselling policy that is in the midst of is in the proposal stage. I think we are also looking at the form of digitalization in terms of whether it is possible for virtual counselling? Is it possible that when your children or the people under your care, some people, when you have depression is the feeling of, for example, you feel that there's something there and you can't reach out, you can't even go up there to actually put your face at the surface because you are so bogged down with the depressive symptoms. And sometimes you are not even being able to dress up and come forward to actually connect with other people. So sometimes we need to also think whether virtual counseling is feasible. Okay, so probably that's one of the way forward that we need to think, because digitalization is in the move. And there has been much progress made. So one of the things that we are trying to do, I was just talking to our SUB, that we probably need to link between Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education. We have our HEAL helpline, Help with Empathy and Love 15555, that looks at the public. But how can we actually identify and be able to convince our callers, who are probably some of them from the Ministry of Education, to be able to seek help and to be able to get access to the mental health care at the first level. At the first level. We're not talking about going straight to see psychiatrists. Of course, for those people young, they are clear-cut diagnoses. You need to have assessment. You have to see a professional. Okay? But we're talking about, for example, a child who's actually being laughed at. This morning I was on my way to work. At about 7, I was hearing from one of the radio stations saying that what is the most embarrassing thing that you have faced? And somebody actually came to call and said that, when I went to this reunion, and this was in the radio, Radio Sina tadi pagi. I was at a reunion and I was sitting at the table and I had my classmates and they were asking about where do you work, what do you do, how many children do you have, who do you marry and things like that. You're catching up. But when she was saying that, I just work at a factory, I'm a factory worker, and she was laughed at. That was what she felt. She was laughed at. That was the most embarrassing thing that happened to her. So it was like, for example, that is a trauma to her, But she was able to actually say that she actually express it in public. Although maybe her name is not the real name, I'm not so sure. But basically, those are among the things when we talk about mental health care, access level. At that point of time, who does she go to? Because she was very traumatized by that particular statement and by that laugh within that table. So that affects her mental health at some point of time, but probably she got help. It did not go to see a doctor pun, but we need to actually tell people that whatever things that you are facing in terms of challenges, your mental health, you need to reach out and get help. That is first thing. So talk to someone that you trust as a first line. So if you talk about the other things, lack of awareness among stakeholders. Sometimes we look at that statement is very, very impactful. I'm not taking this statement just from my head. It's something that I got it from Harvard Law of School when we had our training. I'm actually, right now, I'm also taking the course of upscaling mental health services in terms of online. And these are some of the things that globally has been identified as one of the things and gaps in mental health care. So if you talk about safety net, in other countries like, I think Britain, even Australia, we do have a lot of social workers that can even go to the house to actually look at what is happening at home, because sometimes we have carers, kita ada carers. You may not be suffering from mental illness or mental ill health or even any forms of mental health condition, but you are taking care of 2 parents that has chronic NCDs. One is probably having a stroke, another one would probably having severe uncontrolled diabetes with dialysis to be done, and you are the carer. So imagine what your mental health would be like. So these are the things that when we talk about the need for safety net, we're talking about community counsellors. So to all counsellors, you may also need one to open your doors to probably lay counsellors. Although kita kata, we may find another term for it. I'm not so sure because I know the word counsellors is very, very close to your hearts. Kan? Tak boleh, orang lain tak boleh buat counselling. Faham? Okay? We understand that. But you may need to open your doors to train people who are not in the counselling field, to be able to do the things and to be able to actually help other people at the community. So in abroad, they do have terms as para-counsellors or lay counsellors. In our part, macam doctors, what we call as now pun kita ada assistant medical officer. Kita panggil assistant medical officer ataupun previously people know it as paramedic. Okay, so we probably need to think of something like that. You know, the term doesn't matter, but the function needs to be actually analysed. The other one is cost of mental health care. Who knows if you go and see a clinical psychologist ataupun psychiatrist, or even I'm not so sure if you have counsellors practicing in the private sector, how much do you have to pay? 50 per hour for B40. Okay, B40. Kita semua ni ada B40 kat sini ke? Kebanyakan tak ada. Okay, if you consider yourself as B40 because of the whole of the thing, doesn't matter, but kebanyakan kita tak ada. Okay, alright, we are not in that category. Okay, so if you as a person who wants to bring your children ke, your people, because we need to be fast, for example, you want the service fast, how much do you have to pay? 1 jam? 120? Okay. Siapa pernah bayar sekali session 450, between 350, 450 up to 600? Anyone? Ada? Come across tak? It is there. If you see a clinical psychologist, maybe from the French embassy, it is about 300 plus per session for a clinical psychologist, private. Private. And sometimes you need to see a clinical psychologist for some whatever reason. So basically, when we talk about the cost of mental health care, financial barriers, even for the countries with mental health care professionals, people still struggle to actually access treatment due to costing. So kita, our health system is in such a way, you get treatment for only by paying berapa? RM1. RM1. You go to clinic Kesihatan, you can get to see a doctor by actually having RM1. So these are some things that we in the Ministry of Health needs to think about. And how can we subsidize, for example, if you look at your LHDN, LHDN, siapa yang isi LHDN in April, remember, there is a portion there to say that if you bring your family member or yourself to see a mental health, I think some form of mental health care or something like that, you can get, your LHDN can get deducted. That means your tax too is deducted by 1,000, I think. Is it 1,000 or 2,000? I can't remember, but it's there. Last year. Baru saja. So these are among the things that policymakers need to look at. So these are among the things that we do at the Ministry of Health. And next slide. Kejap. Yeah. All right. So this is the strategic plan that we have developed, and one of the stakeholder is Ministry of Education. Okay. So we have also worked with the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Ministry of Women. So, but I personally think that engagement is very, very important. So I'm just going to talk about engagement that is not in the slides. So basically, we have, how do you go forward? You need to engage. You need to work together because mental health is everybody's business. So the level of engagement, if you can see, one is basically when we talk about personal level, community level, and strategic level. So basically when you talk about personal level is basically when you actually approach people personally and you try to actually advocate mental health to them. How do you do that? Community level, every one of here is living in some house, kan? I'm sure everyone here is living somewhere. Betul? And you have your community engagement. For Malaysia, kita ada apa? Rukun tetangga. Kita ada apa? Surau. Kita ada apa lagi? What else do we have? PIBG. How many teachers here? Teachers, PIBG dekat sekolah, How many teachers here is involved in PIBG? Directly. Angkat tangan. Tak ada. Okay, ada. Siapa yang tak involved pun? Dr. N is by pilihan, okay? It's choice. It's pilihan. You're being elected and you're being selected. Fine, because I know I can understand that. But if you are involved with PIBG, these are the things when we talk about KSIB, when we talk about kumpulan sokongan, peer support. That is one of the important things that we need to advocate at community level. So how do we advocate parents? We need to think how. Kalau kita kata tak boleh lah, cannot lah, of course everything semua tak boleh. But look at where mental health has been since 20 years ago. 20 years ago, and now we are talking about mental health. Every single one of you can talk about mental health. You know, it's just about being advocator, getting the right facts, and giving the accurate statements and also the advocacy. Next, so when we talk about initiatives that we have advanced in terms of effective mental health program efforts, stepping up engagement with other agencies. So this is where, when we talk about strategic planning, okay, this is where participation in shaping and implementing mental health policy is one of the things that we at the Ministry of Health is trying very hard to do. So if you talk about increasing mental health literacy through digitalization, through training, okay, so this is where when we talk about the way forward, and increasing human resource. So basically, I think even the Ministry of Education is trying to get human resource, increasing counsellors placement, okay. In the Ministry of Health, we only managed to have about 200 counsellors at the ground, which is never enough. But how can we utilize and share resources? This is the way forward, okay. All right, so how can we, you know, when we have a problem in school, which is the nearest clinic that we can contact counsellors or even doctors there to actually refer ataupun to actually have this connection and engagement to ensure that there is a seamless care for that particular individual in school or in education, in tertiary education with the problems of mental health conditions. Okay, budget allocation. Okay, to let everyone know, okay, remember that Ministry of Health has previously given about 2 million to Ministry of Education to implement the mental health program in school. Okay, but I think for this year, Puan SUB, we can discuss that probably the budget can also be channeled to the, how do I say, for the advocacy for teachers, counsellors, you know, not just for the students program. Because if teachers are stressed, you know, students will be stressed. If teachers are angry, students will also go back angry. Okay? So, that goes the same for parents, because among us here, we wear different hats. We are also parents. Okay? So, one thing that I find that when we talk about community empowerment, there's also an area whereby we need to empower the religious leaders. Okay, I have about a few minutes more. We need to empower the religious leaders. So, if we have religious leaders in the tertiary education, kita ada ustaz, kita ada ustazah, kita ada mereka yang berilmu. So, please ensure that we get the facts right. Okay, because my first take-home message, mental health, mental illness, having mental condition, it is not about weakness. It is not about you not being spiritually savvy ataupun you're not being apa orang kata you are not spiritual enough. That is not right, because always remember, mental illness is an illness. Treat it. whatever things that you need to actually come along the way is very simple. Yeah? If you talk about advocacy, when we talk about that is why a lot of people say, you know, if you have mental ill health, you have depression, that means you are actually being punished by God. Ini ayat-ayat yang orang pakai, you know. But yes, I would say that, so is it the same for other illnesses? Is it the same that when you have diabetes, when you have hypertension, your BP naik, you know, you have lots of dosa, you have lots of sins. It doesn't matter whether, you know, when you feel that way, this is where people do not come and seek help. Because you feel that you're weak, you're not good enough, you know, God doesn't love you. Ini ayat-ayat yang, these are the things that we need to educate the spiritual leaders, that basically when we talk about, kalau siapa yang pernah tengok Forum Perdana Islam that was just released recently, I think on the 28th of September, I'm not so sure, I think it's on the 28th of September, whereby we sit with Ustaz semasa itu, Ustaz Datuk Badli Shah Mufti, Timbalan Mufti of Pahang, you know, and one of the questions was that mental health, adakah masalah kesihatan mental mereka yang kena penyakit mental ini kurang iman? So that is the first. That means we need to educate our spiritual leaders to basically, because our children will go to the people that they are comfortable with, that they are trustworthy, or you trust the person. So counselors, teachers, lecturers, do not be afraid ataupun do not be down or downhearted if one student doesn't come to you. It doesn't matter. As long as that particular student goes to the right channel. So itu yang menjadi, because not everybody can come to Dr. N. Not everybody can actually come to dekat counselor dekat sekolah. Not everyone. But get the teachers, educate everyone in school so that they have the same knowledge and on the same page with you counselors. Okay? Boleh? I thought you all sleeping already. Okay. Okay. Next. I'm going to go fast after this. Okay. I just want to highlight, for anybody who may not know, okay, we have now established a National Center of Excellence for Mental Health, and we are working differently. We are embarking on engagement with other agencies. We are embarking on engagement with NGOs. Next slide. And we have 5 scopes here. Okay, we're talking about promotion, we're talking about intervention crisis, we're talking about looking at postvention. Okay, postvention di mana we help those people who actually suffers from losing their loved ones due to suicide, for example. Okay, so this is where I can understand if, for example, because the data of ending one's life or even suicide attempts, if it happens in your tertiary education, if it happens in school, it lies in school sometimes. It is beyond our reach out. But sometimes we need to actually have that engagement so that we can offer that service of postvention. Okay? And we have surveillance, next slide. Training, next slide. Okay. All right. This is the crisis helpline, next slide. So I'm made to understand that Ministry of Education will also have it established on a working day basis. So we need to actually work hand in hand. Next slide. And I think this slide has been actually showed before. And one of the things that I want to actually emphasize is number 4, the role of the peers. So I know that in schools we have pembimbing PRS, in tertiary education we have support group, but we are looking more at those in the youth, you know, whereby we need to have that tertiary support, we need to have that peer support role. And at this point of time, the way forward is for also our center to work with all the head of departments and clinics at the universities. Because our students pergi clinic, our students goes to the clinic. You know, it doesn't help them if when you go to the clinic and you tell them that, you know, I don't feel well, I feel so exhausted, you know, because of burnout and things like that. I have these symptoms, I cannot sleep. And then the next thing that another person will tell you, no, you're a law student. You shouldn't be feeling this way. You should be tough and stronger. That doesn't help. Okay, all right. Next, so peer support is important. Next slide. Okay, I'm also looking at working with the Ministry of Women, Family and Development to look at the one-stop social center, Pusat Sokongan Social Support, which is under Yayasan Kebajikan Negara, because I think it has a lots of potential, and this is some of the things that we are doing in terms of surveillance. We are monitoring data so that we can get a concise and also a comprehensive data that we can actually, one of the other things is actually on this Sunday we will launch the module My Minda in My Sejahtera. So hopefully that we are moving somewhere with that. Next slide. Okay. So in transforming mental health and support care, basically we do have clinic Kesihatan, we do have mental health psychosocial support at every level. I think even at the Ministry of Education, we do have that, and even what we call as the, what team is that? There's a name for the team. I can't remember, but the name for a special team in Ministry of Education. And training community leaders will be one of the way forward, because community leaders, ketua-ketua kampung takes care of their kampung-kampung. So that is important, that when you know about a family, you know that in that family you have a child probably with autism, you have a parent and elderly with dementia, example, and you have school-going children that is struggling because nobody is actually looking into their emotional status. So, and this is adapted from the framework for the future of mental health in Western Pacific, and we will follow this through, hopefully that Malaysia. I'm quite surprised actually when I went into one online platform, and they say that Malaysia has actually progressed quite well in terms of our mental health advocacy and services. So clap to all of us, because kita dulu we never thought that we would make it in terms of mental health promotion in schools. Okay, at least that's so we are progressing forward. Next slide. Okay, so this is in the nutshell. When we talk about community-based mental health care, the way forward is looking at mental health beyond health sector. Because why? Social issues, problems that cause mental health issues are keuangan. Siapa yang suka? Siapa yang tak suka? PM announce kita dapat 2,000, 2,000 right you all? Ya. Siapa jusa-jusa tak payah berangan 1,000 saja. Okay. Okay, 2,000 kan? Tak kira kontrak apa. Siapa yang tak suka? Of course suka kan? Tapi tak cakaplah suka. Sabar je. Okay, so basically financial. That is one of the things, conflict between family, between colleagues, relationship, that is another thing, So when we talk about beyond health sector, environment, if you live in an environment that is noisy, jam can kill you, can kill, inverted comma. My daughter was telling me, finish work at 5, trapped in the jam for 3 hours. From where? balik Kota Kemuning. Stressful. Okay, but basically that is life. So how do we get out of it? So we need to teach our children, our adolescent about resiliency. Sebagai contoh, kalau kita drop benda ni, it can pecah. Betul orang kata, wah iPhone tak drop, contohlah it's not just about the phone or iPhone, it's about the material. You drop the plastic, dia tak pecah. You drop the ball, it bounces. So do we want to be the glass or do we want to be the ball? Kita nak bounce, come back. Getah, come back, So it's elastic. So basically when we're talking about resilience, that is the community that we wish for. Alright? So when we talk about community mental health service, is giving community services at the first level of care. Next slide. So my last slide would be the way forward. I think some of it, I have actually touched upon it, like digitalization, empowering peer support group. This is important. You have so many programs in the Ministry of Education. Insert mental health into that. And basically when we talk about fostering community-led solutions, equip families, equip community, equip individuals, and especially trying to get people with lived experience. There is such thing, ya. Saya baru belajar, I've just learned that there is such thing as experts from lived experience. So we are talking about lived experience. Tapi lived experience is not just, I have depression, but you don't get it diagnosed. You know, I have anxiety, berdebar-debar je, but you don't get it diagnosed. Get a proper diagnosis, do not self-diagnose, do not be Google doctor. That is the most important. So my take-home message, I think everyone here is doing very well. You're doing mental health advocacy. Get the facts right. We have distributed fact sheets. I think we have passed it to Encik Pilos, but we can pass it to the bahagian counselling. Please distribute it because those are the facts in the fact sheets about World Mental Health Day. World Mental Health Day has actually is on the 10th of 10, but if you all would like to bring your family to the curve on this Sunday between 7 a.m. as early as 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. you can have a look and a go about lots of activities. There'll be lots of performance after 2 o'clock from Alif and the Locomotors, Aina Abdul, okay? And if you want to come and see it, please come to the Centre Court on this Sunday. You know, even if it's not in the morning, the perasmian ataupun the launching will be in the morning. We'll be launching our book and things like that. But after that, we'll have what we call as the music expression and TED Talk on music and how it relates to achieving good mental health. Okay. With that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Next slide. I leave you all with next slide. Okay, last slide. My last slide. Ada lagi? Tekan lagi satu. Okay. We know about this campaign. I hope everyone knows about this campaign. Let's talk. Are you okay? Are you okay? Right. Okay, let's talk. And please encourage people to come and talk normally about mental health. Last slide. And stop the stigma. Last slide. Okay, this is our logo for this year. Okay, so after this, I'm quite sure that if you want to use the logo, we have no issues because we need to stop the stigma about mental illness, stop the stigma about those people suffering with mental illness, help them, reach out to them, pinjamkan telinga, listen to them and encourage them to seek help. Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan thank you very much.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sekali lagi tuan-puan, berikan tepukan yang paling gemuruh tuan-puan kepada yang berusaha Dr. Nurashikin Ibrahim ataupun sebagai Dr. N. Dengar suara je tuan-puan ya, sedap ya tuan-puan. Mana tak tidak ya tuan-puan, merupakan penyanyi yang suaranya sangat merdu antara lagunya Penghias Masa ya. Jadi kalau boleh dengar sikit satu lirik ya Dr. N, boleh ke insya-Allah. Okay.
Wow. Oh semua. Okay, this one jangan record lah ya. This one is for you all, okay? It's just a song called Penghias Masa. I have another song that you have played in your convention, Yakin Positif. So here it goes ya. Usah dikau perbandingkan diriku dalam cahaya, sangkamu aku bahagia, hakikatnya pedih di jiwa. Bukan niatku meluahkan, cuma ingin mengenangkan singgah sana sangkar emas terungkai di dalam sangkar. I've forgotten my song.
Okay,
I have not sang for a long time. Okay, so my next song is Yakin Positif. Okay. Yakin, yakin, fikirkan positif, kuatkan semangatmu. Yakin, yakin, fikirkan positif, hargai dirimu. Okay, alright, nanti dengarlah. Okay, we will. If you want to see me sing, come to the curve. I'll be singing for you as a performer. Okay, so you'll be seeing a different Dr. N there. Okay, but we will advocate mental health, inshallah. Okay, alright. Spread love, spread kindness, no stigma. Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih sekali lagi Dr. N. Berikan tepukan perempuan. Sebagai tanda penghargaan dan terima kasih, pihak majlis mempersilakan yang berusaha Puan Haja Salmiah binti Monsi, Setiausaha Bahagian Bahagian Psikologi dan Kaunseling Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia untuk menyampaikan sijil penghargaan dan cenderamata kepada yang berusaha Dr. Nurashikin binti Ibrahim, Pakar Perunding Kesihatan Awam, Pusat Kecemerlangan Kesihatan Mental Kebangsaan, Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia. Majlis mempersilakan. Okey tuan-tuan, berikan tepukan tuan-tuan puan. Untuk teman-teman di ruang YouTube live kita kali ini ya, lebih 200 orang. Dan Alhamdulillah kita lihat ramai yang tulis di bahagian chatting. Kalau boleh tuan-tuan di bahagian chatting boleh tekan button like dan sebagainya. Boleh highlight kita punya kata apa, slogan Minda Madani Masyarakat Harmoni dan juga hentikan stigma kehadap kesihatan mental kepada warga Malaysia. Ya tuan-tuan, dengan penyampaian itu tadi, berakhirlah sudah bagi plenari yang kedua pada pagi ini. Saya akhiri dengan serangkap pantun, bubur selasih, ubi keladi, lemak manis, santan kelapa. Terima kasih Dr. N atas perkongsian tadi. Selalu